Hi, everybody. Thomas Miller on the Fun Astrology Podcast. Thank you so much for stopping by. We have a pre-holiday week, and especially we have Mercury getting ready to go direct. Let's jump right into the chart and take a look at what's going on this weekend. First of all, the moon, that we showed this on Wednesday, is sextiling Neptune. This is obviously on its way out of Taurus. After that, it moves into Gemini at 12:21 this afternoon. The void, of course, this little spot right here, is going to be 4 hours and 42 minutes. So this sextile is at 7:39 in the morning Eastern, and then this is at 12:21. Now, the only other exact aspect today happened before this, but it's this little sextile between Venus and Mercury. So, if you haven't done so already and you're waking up, tell your partner you love them. It will land well, except Mercury is still in retrograde. It should land okay, let's put it that way. But it's always a good thing to do, regardless of what's going on in the sky, and you already know that. But yeah, just a little aspect there with Mercury. Mercury getting very strong over the weekend because it does turn direct on Sunday. And then Sunday, the big day of the weekend, first of all, kicking off with, are you ready? Let's do it together now. Aaaaawooooooo! We can do it on video too. Aaaaawooooooo! That's a tradition around here, and we can't do it just because we've changed over to video. We can't stop doing it. But the other thing that I love about this full moon is that we have Jupiter really close to it. Now, Jupiter is, it's not in its happiest land over there in Gemini because it rules Sagittarius. But we still have that mutual reception with Mercury, and Mercury on Sunday night is going to be turning direct. And here's something else that's interesting. This full moon is way out of bounds. Notice it's at 28 degrees north, 14 minutes. That's like as far out of bounds as the moon can go because the sun is approaching its maximum southern latitude. And I'm going to be doing a presentation on this on Christmas, talking about how the sun retreats in the sky down to its lowest point of the year, stays for 3 days, and then turns around and starts to rise again. It's a tremendous story, and we'll talk about that on Christmas Day. That's going to be the Christmas Day podcast. But check out that moon at 28 degrees. That is a way out of bounds, wonky moon. And everybody wonders, what is an out-of-bounds moon like? Well, it's just like a moon that kind of goes berserk, I always think of skiing. I love to ski, and I spent 3 great years in Colorado doing it. And whenever you would see somebody go under the ropes, and boy, they did it all the time. There were always tracks and trails over there, and you knew they were playing naughty, but boy, were they having fun. And that's kind of the out-of-bounds moon. But it can rock our emotions. It can upset relationships. It can cause we can kind of not be thinking clearly. There's a lot of stuff that can happen with that out of bounds moon. How long does it last? So on the video, I have it highlighted. I'm going to go back to Wednesday. This is Wednesday of last week. The moon was at 14 degrees, 20 degrees on Thursday, 24 degrees. Now it's out of bounds. It's 23 degrees and a little bit is when it goes out of bounds. So this is an out of bounds moon today. Saturday is at 27 degrees, Sunday 28, then it comes back down to 27 on Monday, 24 on Tuesday, 23 on Wednesday, and then it's back out of being out of bounds. So it really is just almost like this bell curve. It just goes up and comes out. But it could be a wonky weekend, and remember, Mercury is going to be stronger because that's the next event on Sunday. Mercury stations direct. That black S that you can see on the video means that Mercury has come to a stop in the sky, and the next thing it does is turns forward. Now, when Mercury turned direct back in November, it was at 22 degrees 40 minutes in Sagittarius. So it's come back now to 6 degrees. Before it gets back to 22, it will be January 2nd. So Mercury will still be in the shadow for the next several weeks, but it is pulling away. It is getting stronger all the time. But Mercury this weekend is definitely going to carry a punch. And I like to keep an eye on the grid view where you turn your chart. If you have software that does this, you put it into a grid view and it basically just compares the different transits to each other. And what I'm counting now is 12 positive to 11 negative. Things have tightened up a little bit. We've had some quincunxes come into the chart. We have one between the Sun and Neptune. That's interesting. Now, that quincunx, that's an aspect of tension. That's the same aspect, 150-degree aspect, that forms the two bases of the yod, the two sides of the witch's hat, if you will. So we have to watch these. They definitely can create some challenge. Now, one of these is Sunday, and it is the moon, so that will be the end of the weekend. But there's the other quincunx between Pluto and the moon. So we have the Sun, Neptune, and Pluto, moon. So the two luminaries are involved in these quincunxes that have slipped in. So one thing to be particularly aware of this weekend, because we do have Mercury strong and because we do have the moon wobble still in effect, just know we've got the luminaries. That's the essence of us, right? Are in this pull. Pluto on one side of the thing and Uranus on the other. So we could have a little bit of this tension around things happening, but realize that they are ultimately for us to stretch, to be elastic. If we don't get a little stretch, if we go to the gym and we just lift the paper cups from the water fountain, we walk out of the gym totally wasting our time. Well, it's the same thing here. We've got to put a little pressure on us to keep us growing. Now, the other thing, and I just wanted to mention, Elisa talked about this yesterday, and boy, did she do a brilliant job. I am doing not a good job of drawing the kite on the video that Elisa did describing it, but here it basically is, and I'm going to be a little wide up at the top here, but we have some really great points on this kite, and on the video you can see the pattern of the kite right there. It's 3 trines connected by, and then 2 sextiles forming off of that. And she described this so well yesterday. I'm going to refer you back to the episode there. Nothing else to say about it. The way that she handled it was just perfect. Mars in retrograde is at the table, and it's pulling against Venus, and it's also in aspect with Pluto. And to stretch this a little bit, a lot of people ask about, well, what orbs do you use? The orb is simply the difference between degrees of the different planets. So in this kite, Mercury, for example, on one side of the kite is at 6 degrees and Mars is at 5 degrees. That's very tight. Also, Mercury is at 6 degrees and Neptune is at 27. That's very wide. The node of the moon, the north node of the moon, is at 2 degrees. That's 4 degrees different. And I know I'm getting into math here, but just to make the point, different people use different degrees. Robert Glasscock, for example, uses 8 degrees across the board, but he only uses the Ptolemaic aspects. Steve Forrest, who I've narrated 6 audiobooks with, he says, well, how much data do you want to collect? If you want to collect more data, widen the orb. If you don't want as much data, tighten it up. What does Thomas Miller say? Well, what I say is it's not God who put these lines there. It's us, because we're the ones that have to have the structure. So if you're less structured, and in horary astrology, you can use sign-based aspects, whether it just occupies the whole sign. You could have a planet at 2 degrees and another planet at 28. And they could be in a conjunction if they're all in the same sign. So it really is the amount of data that you want to use. But if you'd like to hear more about this kite formation, you can go back to yesterday's audio podcast. Elisa Dixon did a fantastic job with that. And I would say that pretty much wraps us up for this week. Thank you so much for letting me play with this video. I really appreciated your comments on Wednesday on the YouTube channel. If you are listening to the audio podcast and you have a chance to go over to YouTube and just watch a couple of minutes of it, I would love to see what that does to the algorithm. I'm just like, this whole YouTube thing baffles me. So if you don't mind doing that, it would help me a lot, and I would greatly appreciate it. I hope you have a great weekend. I love you. Thank you so much for watching. If you're on YouTube, hit the like button. That will help as well. Have a good one. We'll see you back on Monday.